Hi, I'm Ben Stanhope.
I'm Zach Leawold.
And I'm Jacob Tinnell.
And welcome to The Movie Vault, or How I Learned to Love the Vault.
Bomb. Oh, the Vault.
The Vault, or The Bomb. Yeah.
I didn't even know I was supposed to say my last name. I can't say anything.
That's okay.
Yeah, Jacob is we are glad he is here today, and he is our, I don't know how many guests we've had on, but
I'm one of them.
I ran into him. I ran into Jacob at Skyline Chili, and then that made me think. I was like, you know who we should have on the podcast? Jacob. And Jacob was completely down for it, which I was like.
Now, I don't think that you guys met at Skyline Chili, right?
No, we just recently met. We met 2 weeks ago in front of Skyline Chili.
We had a great.
We met accidentally. He borrowed my pen. Actually, if memory serves, is this right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, he borrowed my pen, and
I needed to sign a receipt.
It was a magical moment. Sparks flew.
Yeah,
I gotta say.
And we needed and we sort of understood each other as film lovers, and I was like, I have this podcast where we talk about film, and you should really be a part of it.
And he had me wrong.
I guess I'm not a great judge of character.
Who would have expected Skyline Chili?
Although, to be fair, Jacob did pick probably one of the more artistic and critically acclaimed movies that we've reviewed on the podcast.
Didn't you watch that tire movie though?
No, we watched Killer Sofa.
Oh,
we have
Killer
not
Sofa.
Watched Rubber yet.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
It's sort of along the same lines as Rubber.
It's same concept, inanimate object. Ah.
Yeah, that was a fun movie, but this one is it's a dark comedy, which we've been doing a lot of lately, because you could sort of consider Killer Sofa a dark comedy, and then we did Heathers last week, so I guess The Social Network's not really a dark comedy. It's more of
dark.
A drama.
This one's also very deeply entrenched in satire.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. And you have to you learn, if you didn't know a lot about the military, I feel like you sort of learn about how the military functions, and once you understand that, you can sort of understand the satire.
Or at least how it did in the 60s.
Hopefully this is not how it's run today, because that would make it kind of scary. But it probably hasn't changed much.
Now we should probably state what movie we're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops.
We were watching Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
The is not in there, by the way, for future listeners. The is not included.
Stanley Kubrick was like, I know people will stutter over this title, so I'm just going to put an in there for them so they don't sound like idiots. But this movie was released in 1964, so the oldest movie we've reviewed, was directed by Stanley Kubrick, and grossed $9.4 million on a $1.8 million budget. It has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 98%, so finding a negative review was very difficult. And it was nominated for 4 Oscars, but I don't think it won any. And Zach, what do you have to say about this movie?
This is a movie that really keeps your bodily fluids healthy.
Oh, they are intact.
Yeah, if you want to know what causes communism, this is a good movie to understand that.
Communism is a disease caused by bodily fluid.
Yeah,
and fluoride.
Yeah.
Yeah, fluoride gets mixed with water, and then they mix the fluoride in water with lots of other things, and then that turns people into communists. That's how it goes.
I'm not confident that's...
Is that not how it worked?
You see, I do not know how to discuss what the man was implying while keeping this show family friendly.
Oh, yes. Okay, I think...
Some sort of chemical castration, I believe, is what he was implying.
I think I picked that up, too.
Yeah. So if you want to believe that it was a tamer version, you can just listen to my interpretation. Otherwise, feel free to watch the movie yourself. So, watch, or top notch. This is just our 3, imagine... I always say this. The listeners are going to kill me if I explain it one more time, but it's like a bell curve, basically. So, most of the movies would be in watch, and then some of them are, really bad enough to be in botch, and then the very elite are in top notch, if that makes any sense. It's sort of like a binary scale, except for there's 3, so it's not.
So a trinary scale.
Yes.
I'm not following the bell curve part of this, though.
Most of them will be in botch.
Okay, I see.
Or not botch, watch.
Most of them will be botch. We really hate ourselves here on this show.
Although we do botch a lot of them, to be honest.
Yeah, I actually don't know if you actually statistically curved out the movie. Probably most of the movies would actually be in botch, considering how many horrible movies there are that you can watch.
Accessible to us and well known.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like the ones that we'll review on this podcast, probably most of them will be in the watch.
Although we've done
category.
some obscure ones lately. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyway, okay, what do you give it, Jacob?
I'd call it. I mean, I definitely watch, maybe top notch. Honestly, it's a hard one to gauge.
Sometimes we do top watch, which is in
top
between.
watch. See, that's
Cheating,
yeah.
but it's true, and that's what I would give this one to, because like it's very important, and Stanley Kubrick is a very important director. But like I don't know whether it's like in the top-notch category exactly. Like it's a well-known movie, but it's not well-known enough. And I imagine it influenced other things, but
Like possibly the Cold War.
It would be very easy to not enjoy the movie, but I did.
yeah, that's true. It would be. I personally enjoyed it as well.
I gave it a top watch as well.
Okay, so we're all in agreement on that. And the plot of the movie, which I will try to say as short as possible, is that there's just been a nuclear bomb that has been launched off by General Ripper.
Jack D. Ripper.
And he is not supposed to be doing this, so most of the movie has to do with the fallout. And spoilers to follow, of course, as always on our podcast.
Although it's been 50, 60 years almost, so...
Like, if
You weren't even alive when it released. You should really have watched it by now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And
You weren't alive.
And we flash back and forth between the interaction between Peter Sellers and Jack the Ripper, Peter Sellers and as the president and this other general, and Peter Sellers and the president as some sort of German scientist who has come over to America.
AKA Dr. Strangelove.
Which
Yes.
I should probably name out all these characters, but I'm not good with names. So
And also a good forward to say is that Dr. Strangelove is only in about 10 minutes of this entire movie.
Yes, it is. But the secondary title is more apt in this situation.
which is odd because generally that's not true. But because the only one I can think of is The Hobbit or There and Back Again.
Yeah.
Which The Hobbit does also not really describe what it is if you don't know what a hobbit is. And,
But there's a lot more Hobbit in that than Doctor Strangelove in this. That is for sure.
yes. I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain. So there's a plane that's flying to drop a bomb, and meanwhile in America, in the Pentagon, they're trying to figure out how to stop said planes from dropping bombs all over Russia, but they're finding it hard because General Ripper has obviously, planned around the idea that they might try to stop him.
He's cut off communications. He turned off all of the, he shut down the entire base and
Disabled
said,
radios.
shoot anyone that's coming close.
And so they do actually, fight with their own army and eventually lose, to which he kills himself. But fortunately, Group Captain Lionel Mandrake is smart and figures out a way to dissect the code and get it back in time for the bombs to be defused before they are dropped on Russia. Except there is one plane, the plane that we have been following the whole movie, that happened to have its communications knocked out, and the Russians are trying to communicate with the Americans to shoot it down before it activates the doomsday machine that allegedly exists if any nuclear bomb is dropped on Russia. And unfortunately, they do not. And who is the captain of the... What is
Cowboy Man.
The cowboy guy rides the nuclear bomb down, to which it explodes, and then we are greeted by Dr. Strangelove, who is pretty blatantly a Nazi by the end of the movie, and is trying his best to repress his presenting his Nazi ideals to the party as a way to give an idea of how they could avoid the doomsday machine, because the doomsday machine will make it impossible to live above ground. So he says, why don't we live underground, and we can have a whole society underground, but not everyone can come underground, so we have to pick select people. And obviously, you guys who are in the military get to come, but not everybody.
With 10 women to 1 man, if memory serves.
Which was very attractive offer to some of the men.
Especially our fancy general dude.
Who...
not even general. What was
it's General Turgson, Buck Turgson, who kind of presents himself as being sort of a religious guy until it comes down to the idea of having 10 women to himself.
and pretty much every single action that he has throughout the
Yes.
entire movie.
Sure, there was one point where he's like, acceptable casualties. What was it?
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
like
10
only
million.
only 10 to 20 million acceptable casualties. You know, so at every point in the movie, they're poking, you know, political satire. You know, Doctor Strangelove represents the scientists that we now know, like, pretty clearly that they brought over from
Japan.
from Germany after the World War to work on American projects, because now it's okay if they work on American projects, just not German ones.
Also, not to get confused with Doctor Strange from like Benedict Cumberbatch's iteration. This is very much a different.
You're telling me this is a different one?
Yeah, this is
Wow, I
not.
really misinterpreted that movie.
This is Nazi Doctor Strange.
This is if Doctor Strange was in Hydra.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but it was really interesting to see how like easily they accepted the somewhat what would be considered the completely evil ideology of Doctor Strangelove, you know, just a mere 20 years after they had defeated the very evil dictator that he came from. He even stumbled over his word and
Mein Führer.
and called the president Mein Führer, and they were just not even in the least bit, you know. They're like, oh well, he's German. You
And
know,
he had to
must be
desperately
hard.
beat his arm down from doing a Zig Heil compulsively.
Which you know that you are in deep if you are compulsively sig hailing. I mean, that is not a good look. But
It really, boy, Nazism is not in fashion this season.
I will say though, Peter Sellers in this movie was the highlight for me, at least. I think him playing three different characters and not even noticing that there were three characters until Jacob says something. It was just really cool. So
he had three distinct different looks. And-
Different looks, different accents, different mannerisms.
yeah,
It was really
British,
incredible.
American, and German.
Yeah, and you know, this is the guy who was the Pink Panther, the original Pink Panther.
Detective
No way,
Clouseau in the
Yes.
Pink Panther.
Yeah. So he's obviously a very
If memory
talented
serves.
guy. He was also in some other of Stanley Kubrick's movies, it looks like.
It was Detective Clouseau, right?
Yeah, he
sounded
was.
like quite
He
an
was.
idiot if it wasn't.
No, I'm pretty sure he was in the Pink Panther movie, but he was just a side.
I said that with a lot of confidence for a man who had no idea if that was his
I'm
name.
pretty positive. He was also on the BBC variety show The Goon Show, it looks like, which I have never heard of, so maybe it's good.
Anyway, we can get into that with actors.
Yes.
But I don't know. I think this movie overall goes over a lot of themes that are, I don't know, not it plays it in a satirical way, but I think they're also important themes and like kind of scary themes in a way. And I guess we'll get into that in messages, but I just wanted to state that up front because
Yes.
it's a movie that like there's not much music. You can just really get into each scene and kind of like feel what's going on, like if you were there, you know.
And very well shot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's another section that we have.
Yeah, it will-
okay,
it
in
will
that
be.
case, I will
It's-
hold my tongue.
But before we go any further, I'm going to bring up our outsider review. So we always bring a negative outside review from a critical source.
Because you can always be a pessimist.
Yes.
That's our catchphrase.
So there was only 2 that I could find on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a very well-liked movie. But Philip K. Schur from the Los Angeles Times, so a top critic on Rotten Tomatoes, he says, "To me, Doctor Strangelove is an evil thing about an evil thing. You will have to make up your own mind about it." Wow, Philip, I'm glad you're letting me make my own mind up about it. I wish you would have just told me what I should think so I could just blindly follow your every word.
That is not much of a negative review now, is it? It's just, hey, you'll have to make up your own mind,
I
man.
think it's bad.
It's up to you.
About a bad thing. I can agree it's about an evil thing, but I'm not sure that it's evil the way
It's a very
that
passive. It's a very passive review. Hey, man, I don't personally like it, but if you like it, you have fun.
Which I thought the whole point of being a film critic, like that kind of film critic, is just to like have really strong opinions and really hold to them. Because on this show we're like, well, you know, we might think this things, but you know, there might be another opinion. But a lot of film critics are like, no, my way is the only way to think about the film.
And there really wasn't
I'm
any
trying to
negative
convince-
criticism about it. It's just like, this is an evil thing, but you can make up your mind. There was no like reasoning.
The only other bad review was talking about like how it was an underwhelming entry within Kubrick's increasingly spotty body of work, which is also not a criticism. It just says it's underwhelming boring compared to other Kubrick films, and that other Kubrick films are sometimes disappointing, which is not criticism of the film itself.
No.
So the critics have sort of let us down in this regard. But you know who's not going to let you down?
Who?
Hedman Anglin Insurance Agency.
Yes.
Hedman
dude.
Anglin Agency.
Airplane insurance, life and war insurance, right?
Save money on your auto, home, and business insurance, even if you're worried that you're gonna have to move underground to a mine for 100 years.
Has your war room been tampered with? Have people been fighting in the war room?
I can't believe people are fighting in the war room. Yeah, well then you need to contact Hedman Anglin Agency about getting some better insurance and saving money as compared to your old insurance. So if you're interested in this, call 614-486-7300. That's 614-486-7300. If you do contact them, make sure to tell them that the Movie Vault sent you.
Get out of here, other insurances. This is the way to go.
Yeah. Anyway,
now we finally get to our section.
I went into a trance there. I don't really know what happened.
We hypnotized him with our insurance speech, and he just went along.
I got real excited.
Jacob's leaving the podcast and buying new insurance now.
I'm on my phone getting ready.
his big board in his war room was just messed up, so he had to go get some insurance.
I have a very nice war room, I will tell you.
Okay, so now we will go to our 10-point scale, and usually what we have guests do is we'll do our scores first, and you can sort of either react to them or like give a score based on like what we said and whether you agree or disagree.
Would a gasp be an acceptable reaction to your scores?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic.
And if you want to keep track of them and add them up at the end, you can, or you don't have to. Like, there's no requirement in that regard. So our first area that we go over is sentiment. So how much did you like this movie, and did it impact you emotionally?
It really was a tearjerker. I gave it an 8.
Well, I think he said that satirically, but it was
satirically.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. I also gave it an 8 because like this is just a really well-made movie. Like there's no way you can't appreciate this, and you know, I haven't seen enough of Stanley Kubrick's movies to know where I compare it, other than like A Clockwork Orange, which I'd probably also give an 8. So like it's at least tied.
Yeah.
Definitely a much different movie though.
Yeah.
This is overall, right?
Yes.
Sorry, I mean...
Yeah.
8 out of 10, not 8 out of 20 or anything weird like that.
But it is, for a movie that was about an hour and a half, and it felt like maybe 2 hours and 15 minutes. It felt longer, but you are invested the whole time, and it's because I'm sure if I were in a situation like that, it would feel like forever. You know, it was super tense, it was dramatic, it was just going back and forth, and also pretty funny. So I gave it an 8.
Yeah, it did take a while for the humor to kind of ratchet up, but by the end, there was definitely a lot of parts to laugh at.
Mm-hmm.
You have to become part of the universe inside of this movie to really understand the humor to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
I feel as though the beginning of it would be just as humorous on a rewatch to a certain extent. I would give it, to be original, an 8 out of 10.
It's not as good as Edgar Wright movies, but it's good.
Absolutely not. It is not as good as A Fistful of Fingers.
I didn't even know that was really an Edgar Wright movie, so I need to watch
It's not good.
It's not
It's
good.
funny in certain areas, but dreadfully offensive in others.
Which this movie might be offensive in some regards, but
Well, there's only
considering-
one female character in the whole movie.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, I'd argue-
It probably doesn't do very good on the Bechdel test.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I actually know what that is. I saw it on YouTube.
Yeah, not high marks on this one with one female character who says like a couple of lines and is probably objectified.
Yeah.
Also, the part of the satire is using the connection between sexual things and the military in general, the connection of the sexual aspects of manly man and the military.
That makes sense because there was some very literal interpretations, like sort of like, especially going back to like his whole theory on like his realization. Like he said after a very physical encounter he felt disappointed, and he realized it was because somehow it led to this realization, and it was very strange connection. You're like, wait, is this guy serious? But then you realize like he's saying this in all seriousness.
And I'm very grateful that I interpreted it correctly. That's what he says.
Yes.
All right. What about message? This is what did the movie convey, and how well did it convey a message or a theme? Ben?
I gave it an 8 because I was going to give it a 7 until I realized that I was definitely underrating. I was like, no, it had a pretty good message. It's just you have to work to understand it, which some people won't like because like you have to understand what the satire is trying to tell you, because it's not just going to like preach to you. Obviously, that's not what satire is supposed to do. But I find that very rewarding in the end, a very rewarding experience.
Yeah, for me, below acting, this is the top for me. I gave it an 8 as well. But the messages in this movie where it only takes one general to go rogue, you know, for a whole nuclear holocaust, essentially. Like the whole Russia gets blown up in the end, or I don't even know, is it Russia or the world or what? I don't.
To a certain extent, it is very interesting in that I'd say that it was the whole world. It seemed to be from that final shot.
Yeah, it was a little ambiguous.
It was ambiguous, and I think intentionally so. I'd give it honestly a 9 as far as message goes, because there's so many layers. This is my second time ever watching the movie, and I picked up a lot more message than I had the first time, certainly. Mm-hmm. A lot more of the stuff that they were trying to convey through their satire and humor, and it was very interesting.
Yeah, I would probably say that this could definitely be an area that I would raise on repeated viewings. But right now, I'd give it an 8 based on what I picked off of it the first time. But this is like a movie that if you rewatch, you'll get more out of it every time, Jacob said.
And it's also interesting because it's like there are probably protocols in place within certain government militaries where one person can have that much power and close off other people from having power. You know, like the president was trying to figure out different ways to like infiltrate this base because the general that had made the decision to enact Plan R, he closed everything off, and they were trying to figure out how to get in communication with the planes to like retract them and stuff. And it just really is like, it makes you wonder like how much would it take for something this serious to happen? Like, does it really, like, it showed how it's possible. And of course, I don't know how accurate it is to like a modern military or anything like that, but it shows how accurately how many people it would take to go rogue, to do something wrong, to make a dumb mistake for like insurmountable consequences.
Yeah, because the it's very fragile. It seems very fragile from the movie, and like since military is based so much on command, like people aren't going to question their superior officers after a certain point. They were like, well, there must be a reason for this. The people in the plane were like, whoa, like we were not expecting to get this command, but like it's the command we got, and we went back to base and they said it was this command, so we're gonna go with it now that we were ordered.
What was the British officer's name again?
His name was, it was a difficult name to remember. Mandrake was his last name.
Mandrake. Okay, yeah, Mandrake he questioned the general, but at the same time he still like did the salute to him, like respected him, followed what he said. But I don't know, it's just really interesting to me because of course it's a satire, but at the same time it's like, wow, this is like these people have our lives in their hands. Like, as
all good satire should, it makes you question the established situation.
Yeah.
And it also speaks very well on an additional layer of satire. Speaks very, very well on the indoctrination of the military overall.
Yeah.
And the way that they become very, in a lot of situations, the military is just no questions asked, do what you're told in all situations, with stripping people of their humanity to a certain extent.
Yeah, that was definitely a big part of the movie, because people, if you looked at it, you're like, well, none of these things make sense that they're doing. Like, they're literally fighting against their own army, like an actual battle, and everyone's like, this is just what we have to do. Like,
well, yeah.
Like, because this is what we're being commanded. We're getting opposing commands, so now we're just gonna, like, and then they had that very, like, obvious, like, something about, like, the pursuit of peace or something, like a huge sign while the war was going on, which was like a little obvious, but also rang true when they're fighting against each other.
True. It was interesting. There was one line that the general said. He said, "It's normally in the past you can trust politicians to make decisions for the generals. You can't leave the whole military to the general." But he says nowadays you can't leave these decisions to politicians because they're too busy trying to keep a good image, and the generals need to take control. So he decides, okay, Russia needs to be gone. You know, he's like, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to close off. I'm going to send these planes. They're going to have no contact back. I'm going to have the only code available. and it's because he's taking matters into his own hands, taking it away from the politicians. And that is another theme that I thought was pretty essential to the movie, which was like, who should actually have the power? The people that are trained in military and tactic combat and stuff like that, or people who are just trying to keep a good image? And it does kind of factor into that, because at the end, you see that the president was influenced by Russian and Nazis. Russian people and Nazis. Like, in the end, like, it's ambiguous. Of course, Ben, you love ambiguous endings.
Yeah.
But it's just really cool to see, like, who do you trust? The politicians are obviously being swayed, so, like, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but the spies are really going for the politicians because they hold power over the military. So then that's why the general kind of made that decision. Although it was a flawed decision, it's still one that's like, wow, like, who's really holding the power and who's being persuaded, you know?
And the other interesting thing is, at the end, it shows sort of like the pettiness of the whole situation, because they were already thinking about, we're already gone underground in the mines. What's going to happen 100 years later? The Russians are just going to come bomb us again. Like, they've already moved on to things, and they haven't even accomplished the thing that they need to get to that, when that situation is going to happen. And so, like, it is a lot about image, and they think they're trying to, like, think ahead, but when they think ahead too much, it's like they're leaving the present behind, and then it ultimately leads to their destruction, or presumed destruction, by the end of the movie.
Well, it's very interesting the way that it presents the Red Scare of the time. It really, really does a good job showing the Red Scare that was so present even as the movie was being released.
Yeah, because they were just like, "Oh, you're a commie," or like whatever, or like
that one character, whatever his name was, the
general. I need to have the cast of characters up. Isn't it? Oh my goodness! I'm on Peter Sellers. That's my problem. I'm not gonna find it. General Turgid or Turgidson.
I'm not gonna try and say that, but him. He is real. He almost acts as a representation of the American people at the time.
Yeah.
In the way that he is terrified. Like, they bring in the foreign ambassador from Russia, and he tries to plant a camera on him, only to find out that the foreign ambassador actually did have a camera on him, but that's aside the point.
Yes, it was interesting to see the interaction, and like, it was also interesting to see how the president was very much not anti-Russian to the degree that the general was, because he was viewing it as like, okay, I might not like this country or what they're doing, but I have to have positive interactions with them in order to keep peace. So he's saying there's like, we're in the midst of tragedy, and he's like exchanging niceties over the phone with the Russian premier, and there's like, oh, it's fine. Yes, I'm glad that you're fine today. Like, those types of things.
Especially since the Russian premier was drunk at the time.
Yeah, and we're like, well, can we just get to the point of what this conversation is? Like, there's like, their country's about to be bombed. They should probably know about it. But anyway, this sort of leads us into plot, which we probably touched on a little bit already.
I believe you already summarized the whole plot.
But I'll just say I gave it an 8 because I thought it was pretty well done.
I also gave it an 8.
Sure, 8. Yeah. There we go. There's my reaction.
Whoa. And some of these are like, I don't know what the difference between this being an 8 or a 9 is. Like, what could have elevated it. It's just more to a gut feeling. And then character arcs. I gave character arcs a 6, but it's only because, like, what are the arcs of these characters? Like, it might be more difficult to, like, describe them just because of, like, what type of movie it is. Like, most of the characters are relatively consistent, and we're just learning new things about them through what they say.
Yeah, Ben, I keep following you. I gave it a 6 too.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say for the same reason.
See, I'd actually have to disagree. I think that while it's an interesting thing, because I'd honestly give it an 8 as well.
Okay.
Because while there is no character arc, that is the entire point. It's about how people aren't changing, how people weren't changing, the terror was not changing. They were all the exact same because ultimately people don't learn anything. And that was the message that they were going for. So I would say they executed that brilliantly. If anything, I might even give it a 9 because they executed their mission very, very well.
That's true. I might be thinking it in the wrong ways in that regard, because I would agree with you. Like, that was completely the point, was to be like, all these characters are just doing what they are doing and not like not listening to other people and not like trying to figure out what the best situation is. They in their minds they already know what the best thing to do is or what they think is the best thing, and they're not going to change it. And it's just them arguing basically over who's right, and that leads to the world exploding. Let's see.
I agree.
Now cinematography, which I gave an 8 because it's really good.
Okay, first
Basically.
one I'm one less on. I gave it a 7. I honestly think I should have given it an 8, but I can't back down. I've already said it. You know, just like they bombed Russia, they can't back down. They got to bomb the whole world now. So
Yeah.
Gonna mix up my reactions. Wow. All right. See, I'd give it I don't know what any of these numbers mean, but maybe a 10, honestly, because they did
It's
the
just for
best that they
entertainment
could have
value.
possibly done.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, there was not a single shot that I think was shot poorly. I think they did a very good job with the lighting, the cameras, all of it, the whole direction, the set design. I don't know if that's a separate section, but the design of the aesthetic of the entire movie was consistent and fantastically done.
aesthetic kind of falls under style a little bit.
We didn't really tell Jacob.
I have no idea what's
what the
happening. I was dragged
categories-
here against my will by a man from Skyline.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I would agree with all those things. The only reason that I wouldn't,
You're comparing it.
I'm giving it like an 8 out of like a different scale. Like a 10 would be like this is the most well shot movie possible. But I will admit that like within a style of film, there are certain limitations to like what kinds of shots you can have.
Yeah.
And like they're shooting this like mostly on sets, so like you can't get those like epic grand scenery shots that you could get in a movie that was filmed outdoors or something.
And you wouldn't want
Like,
it. You wouldn't want epic grain shots
Yeah, you
because
wouldn't. It wouldn't fit.
it was meant to be claustrophobic. It was meant to feel as though everything was closing in. It was intentionally kept at a small scale to show the small scale interactions of all of it.
Yeah.
See, it could be shot like Mandy, and that's a brilliantly beautiful movie, but terrible substance-wise. But it just wouldn't fit the theme,
Right.
to a certain extent.
Right. So you are right in that it like pretty much perfectly captures what it is meant to, and there really is like when using the rating scale is somewhat a gimmick because like there's really no way to compare like what kind of shot.
Let's break
is
down
the-
this rating scale for a moment. See, I think that instead we should all give verbal reactions, just guttural noises, to represent our feelings about whatever the situation is.
Ooh. Perhaps that is a better way to judge art because we have said this several times. Like we are trying to quantify something that is not quantifiable.
Yeah,
So,
it's,
to some
all
degree.
critique is subjective
Yeah.
to a certain extent. Like there is,
But it is fun to get a number at the end.
yeah, it
So-
is fun to get a number at the end. That is for sure. I got to meet our quota.
And we never rate things very high either because we always give things 8s. It's hard to give things 10s. I have a few movies in mind that I would give like a bunch of 10s to, but we haven't reviewed any of them yet. And I always find it hard with these types of movies too because I know that I'll think about this movie for a while and like my initial reaction will be different than like after I've thought about it for a while, and it might like increase. Like there's definitely been several movies that I've, like I liked it, but then after I thought about it, like even a couple weeks or months after I watched the movie, I'm like, wow, I really like that movie.
Yeah,
So like sometimes there's
Kind of like Donnie Darko, you kind of just move it up a little bit.
yeah,
yeah.
until it's your favorite movie all of a sudden.
That's why you can. That's why you can then later re-review a movie in a year from now when you've run out of ideas. Just re-review one of these.
Yeah, although it's kind of hard to run out of movies to review considering how many movies there are.
Well, yeah, but like you just said, like I don't feel like reviewing any other movie. I want to review that one. I want
We've
to stick
reviewed
with
the
what I know.
100 movies that you need to review.
No, we should review our review of the movie.
That would
Yeah.
actually be a good.
That'd be wild.
That would be amazing. Like reviewing our first episode. Well, we still agree that Robert Pattinson's amazing.
14%.
RP.
Reviewing our latest episode.
Yeah, this
10%.
movie would have been better if Robert Pattinson was in it. And I don't care about their excuses.
Instead of Peter Sellers,
And he
it's
plays
just Robert.
every character. Robert Pattinson, even the girl character.
I'm going to make a remake of Doctor Strangelove with Robert Pattinson playing every single character because we now have the technology to make that possible.
Robert Pattinson, if you're listening, we would like to hire you, or at the very least, give us some tips on how to look exactly like you, so that we can do a deep fake.
Tip
Yeah.
1.
because I want to look exactly like you, because you're mathematically one of the most attractive people, or the most attractive people. There's definitely an article that talks about how Robert Pattinson is mathematically the most attractive man on the planet.
You can't feel it, listeners at home, but the energy in this room is massively shifted.
Okay.
He is now bright red.
That's just what RP makes me feel like, you know?
RP, I was just about to say that.
R-Pat.
Pat.
Patty boy.
Oh, just wait until he's Batman. That's going to be crazy. Originality.
Pat Bat.
Pat.
Or
Pat is
Bat. Okay, Bat Pat's good. I like that.
Yeah, that works. I mean, because you'll need to differentiate him from Bale Bat, Bat Bale.
Bat
Bale.
Bobat, B-Bye, Bobat.
Or Clooney Bat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Keaton.
Keaton, who we were going to review that movie. Maybe eventually someday.
You'll have to have me back so we can watch Batman 1989.
Yeah, Jacob decided he wanted to do something a little bit more artsy.
Yeah.
But like Batman 1989.
Something easier to discuss at the very least.
Would Batman 1989 be like just a difficult movie to like critique because it's so campy?
See, it was I just was not fully. Again, you have to understand the context. I've been brought here against my will from a Skyline, so I don't fully know the context of this show. So I was not sure exactly how you had it set up, and if it was more of a snobby sort of, well, yes, I quite enjoyed the situation as it was presented. Oh, yes, he was delightful in that film. Notice I said film instead of movie, because I'm a snob. So
Yeah, no, we're not like that, because we don't have the credentials to be like that.
No, see, I misunderstood. See, next time we can watch Batman 1989, it'll be a stellar time.
Yeah, because we watched Killer Sofa, which, shout out to Bernie Rayo, we love you, but
Yes.
like, it's no...
Walk in the park.
It's no snobby movie, like no snobby movie critic would be like, "Oh, this was amazing," but we think it was good in its own special way.
I kind of want to rewatch that movie.
Yeah.
Just to like
after hearing him explain it on another podcast, I've had a whole new appreciation for it that I didn't have originally. But speaking of originally, we need to get to originality.
good. That was the best. That was like the best transition we've had.
Whoa!
And the fact that I pointed it out.
Here's my reaction.
Wow! The fact that we didn't have to be like, anyway, and then awkwardly pause and then move on to the next one.
And now that it's been 10 minutes since you made the segue, let's go at it.
So I give originality an 8 because it was. I think this was made in the 60s, and I don't know that political satire was like. I mean, Charlie Chaplin had done political satire.
The Great Dictator.
The Great Dictator, which I think he said later he might not have done if he knew. Like, he obviously wanted to critique Adolf Hitler, but like Adolf Hitler got way worse, at least from what people knew about him. Like after that movie came out, obviously, because people hadn't known all the information about the Holocaust until a little bit later than The Great Dictator came out, and that sort of made that film a little bit more. Heavy and not as tasteful as maybe it was when it first came out. But this movie was also similar to that movie in that it came out right in the period of time that it was critiquing. So unlike one of my favorite movies, The Death of Stalin, it is like in its time and not critiquing something that happened like 50 years ago.
Again, going over a World War II type of thing. I gave it a 7. Same reasons as you, probably. It's
a 7 for him.
Yeah,
because he's more pessimistic.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's one thing, and also, like you said, at the time it was much different. If this type of movie were to come out today, I would still love it. Honestly,
if this type of movie were to come out today, I feel like people would like not know how to respond proper. Like there's no way they can make a political satire today without making one group really upset.
Yeah,
like it'd be hard to make like a political satire that everyone could get behind. Like I could be wrong about that, but send me your political satire suggestions.
Or memes.
See, am I allowed to use a decimal system?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
6.583. You see, I don't think the only reason I'm taking off notes for notes for originality is because it was based on a book.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I'm not confident. I don't know enough about the book to know how much was taken over, but I know that a lot of the concepts were presented in the book instead of in the movie, and it was that was also very heavy political satire. So I'd agree with all the statements you made, but I'm not confident that that was the movie creating them.
Got you. I forgot kind of that it was a book. I knew it was a book, but I kind of forgot about that. But I think that Kubrick, like, basically a lot of his big, like, Clockwork Orange, The Shining, were both books. So, like, did he really even have that many original ideas?
I mean, he would just present he actually discussed it, I remember reading in an interview where he discussed, or maybe he was watching an interview, I don't remember. But he discussed how he found it much easier to start off with a jumping point and make something even better.
Oh, yeah.
Than it was to just start off from scratch, because there were so many interesting stories to be told, and he found that the film as a medium was a fantastic way to display them.
Yeah. And I can appreciate for that. But now we're on to acting, where Peter Sellers carries the show. And I give it a 9 because, like, when somebody gives 3 different performances in the same movie and they're all amazing, like, you pretty much have to give it pretty high acting props.
Yeah, I gave it an 8. Mostly because of Peter Sellers. 6 of those 8 points are because of Peter Sellers. The other ones are... I was about to say the president, but that was Peter Sellers too. But no.
I think the guy who played Turgidson was pretty good, George C. Scott. And then probably the guy who played Jack D. Ripper was pretty good as well. But everyone else they did their part. They did what they needed to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You see... Wait, hang on. There we go. There's my reaction, and I'm gonna be done with reactions because I've overplayed that. So
he's aware.
I'd say 8.5 because I don't want to pick sides.
Smart.
It was really, really well done. Peter Sellers did a great job. All the actors really did a great job in the context of what they were trying to create. It was no method acting. It was no intense.
Yeah, this is no There Will Be Blood.
Yeah, there was no Heath Ledger going at it sort of deal. It was just it was somewhat campy, but in all the right ways and in all the right situations to present the comedic tone, or the very dark comedic tone in the satire. Really, barely any comedy. All the comedy comes out of how absurd the situation is as a whole.
Yeah, that's true. If you're expecting there to be like a lot of one-liners, that's not the kind of comedy it is. Like, most of the comedy is like, wow, he just said that, like, that's like a crazy thing to say, but like people aren't reacting like it's crazy all the time, like, and then that sort of like, and you can eventually enjoy the humor that's in that, but like it's not necessarily like a comedy that might, in the traditional sense of the word.
Yeah.
Zach is agreeing.
I don't know. I'm just thinking about it. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. They are within their lines. Like, they do say their lines within their rules, you know? They don't, like you said, they don't go on Heath Ledger rants or anything like that.
But, like, you don't need that in every movie.
But I think Peter Sellers kind of, with his characters, makes them, like, not campy, but, like, kind of takes them, I don't know, he adds, like, a spin to them almost. I don't know.
To some degree, though, he could be that guy who is sort of the method actor, though, because, I mean, he's not a method actor because, like, you have to put a lot more physicality into the, but, like, to some degree, like, his portrayal of Dr. Strangelove required, like, some interesting physical.
Well, that's called character acting, which was more popular at the time.
Gotcha.
Where it's a very specific, it's acting for a very specific character.
He probably was not getting into the mindset, because that would be so confusing when you're trying to get the 3 different mindsets of characters. And
he was still very campy, I'd argue, because it was all within the context, like, as he's raising up his hand and slapping it.
A lot of the stuff is exaggerated and unrealistic.
Oh, so, yeah.
That's what makes it
in
campy.
the best way, along with the War Room. The War Style Room is coming up at some point. I have no idea.
Style is next, and I gave it a 9.
Nice transition.
Yeah. He was reading my mind. We just have that Skyline connection. Anyway. It's funny because that's like one of the only times I've ever been to Skyline in my entire life.
Really?
Yeah. Like that.
Let's take a second to talk about Skyline. No, I'm just kidding.
It's okay for me.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I give it a 6
Isn't there
out
an
of 10.
outside the vault sort of deal where we talk? Let's talk about Skyline.
We can. We had a rant about Burger King one time, so
fantastic.
Maybe we can have more positive rant.
One of our first ones was food. We did like our favorite foods.
Yeah.
That was like one of our first outside the vaults.
Yeah, it was literally just.
We did it in a dark apartment room that was abandoned.
Yeah. We were probably not supposed to be in there, but, you know.
Everybody was being loud.
Yeah, in his apartment, so we had to move.
Anyway, transition. I gave it a 7, and I regret that because I do think that everything does fit together well, because that's the way that I look at style, like how the different elements of the movie kind of puzzle together, and the acting goes well with the plot, and you wouldn't expect it to. You wouldn't expect, like, it sounds like on paper this sounds like a boring plot, like, because you don't get like the implications of it, but if you're reading like a transcript of the words, maybe it's a little more interesting. But I think the acting goes well with it, and it kind of elevates it to like the craziness that it actually is. So I think it kind of fits together well. So I would give it like maybe an 8, but I gave it a 7 because I just wasn't thinking about that aspect.
I'd give it another 10 because the set design is so oppressive in some situations. Like the war room is big, imposing, the giant map on
and
the
like
wall,
the light that's
and
like
the
circular,
jagged, angular sort of design of the maps and all that stuff. The general look of the movie was just incredible, and all of it fit, like you said, together very, very well.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Even some of the shots, like the first monologue that the general K something, whatever, the general said at the beginning, where it's just like him with a cigar, and it's just like a tilted shot
Ripper.
of his face.
Is that Ripper?
That was Ripper. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird angle where it was like going up his face. Like,
I was like, you need
normally
to
in a
trim your
movie
nose.
they wouldn't have like a shot like I might have seen that in like one other movie, but I can't even remember what it is. Like, it was interesting that they chose that. Next is like the score, meaning like the musical score, not like the overall score, which I gave an 8 because how it's obviously lots of impressive renditions of the ants.
The ants are marching.
The ants are marching. No, I'm just kidding. But the music, when they chose to use it, fit pretty well with like overall what they were trying to accomplish, like everything else.
I might have an unpopular opinion. I gave it a 6. This is the lowest part for me, just because it didn't. I remember the fact when I think about score, I remember the fact that the ants are marching, where it was in it. But when I think about the movie as a whole, I don't think about that at all. So it didn't stick with me. Maybe that's why. So
I'd give it a 9 for that exact same reason. It didn't. it stayed. It added to the movie rather than becoming its own element. It was all very coherent. It doesn't stick out because you think of the movie as a whole. You don't think of the individual songs, not because they were necessarily bad songs, but they were so well placed and so well timed that it almost was another actor rather than a traditional score.
True. I can respect that.
Yeah. I cannot respect that.
How dare you? You want to fight Skyline Boy?
Let's go to the nearest Skyline and duke it out.
Or just eat.
Yeah, we can just do that.
It's a little late.
And then finally, choreography, which doesn't fit well into every movie, but is like the physical
dance numbers were my favorite part of this movie.
The physical movement / action / like, subtle movements. It's anything with bodily movements, not fluids movements. Like, I guess so that could be more like physical acting or dancing, which there was none of that.
Oh, there was a lot of dancing.
But there's
Dirty
so many
dancing.
iconic, like the scene at the end where the pilot is hitting the wires with his cowboy hat, and then like goes onto the rocket and is just like has his cowboy hat like waving in the air. Like, I don't know if that counts as choreography, but like to me, like it stood out as being like something that is like iconic that people remember from the movie. And it's not because of any words that were said. It was just because of like, the actions.
Dang. Yeah, I again, unpopular opinion. I actually gave it a 6, and I guess I just didn't include those subtle things. I just kind of went for the full action.
You have to try to if you're trying to shove choreography as something that's in every movie, you have to like some movies you have to kind of reach to like describe what choreography is within that movie. This was the last category that we added, by the way, that Ike suggested a long time ago. And for most movies that we've reviewed, there's like enough action sequences or something that fits into it. But for this movie, it's a little bit harder to define what exactly that is.
And what was your number, Ben?
8.
Cool.
See, I lied earlier when I said I wasn't going to give any more reactions because I'm giving that one a deep sigh. Because I think it was excellent. I don't really have a score. Honestly, I don't care that much. But it was really, really good. It was very, very well done. I was impressed. Peter Sellers' physical comedy was what sold each of those characters.
That's true.
The physical comedy wasn't mostly what he said. It was the actions. Like, the president was very sitting up straight and dignified despite how ridiculous the situation was, and he was talking to a drunk higher up in the Russian
Which you couldn't
rankings.
hear, so it relied completely on
It relied
his
on
reaction.
his reactions,
Yeah.
exactly. No, it's... And then Peter Sellers is Dr. Strangelove, the physical comedy of... you can
like,
pick up off context if you've seen the movie based on that slapping sound.
He almost choked himself, too.
And then he
Like,
also choked himself. He had to start biting his hand to stop. And just generally the physical comedy overall, like the wild, like when that one character, the general who was in the war room, was running off all excitedly and literally did a roll, fell down, stood back up, and then continued talking as if nothing had happened. It was the physical comedy that was arguably one of the more direct comedic parts of the movie that wasn't just based on the absurdity of the situation.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
It's almost Chaplin-esque or silent film-esque in many regards, the way that they would do the physical comedy.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to include all that, I would definitely rank it higher, I think.
And the dance sequences, the one with the big fountain, they're like splashing, singing in the... Or maybe... Oh, wrong movie. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that movie came out a couple years earlier.
Oh.
Good movie, though.
Never
Good
seen
movie.
it.
You've never
No, I have
never
not.
seen Singing in the Rain?
I have not.
It's not necessarily my type of movie, but I can appreciate what it is. But anyway, this movie, I give... My total score adds up to an 80 out of 100, which I think ties it with Heathers from last week, which is interesting. Like Heathers, sentimentally, is a much more important movie to me, but this movie is just so well done.
Yeah, I think this is my second or maybe third highest right now. It's at 71.
That's how notoriously difficult he is.
Mine adds up to 4. I really don't know. I wasn't counting.
It adds up to some number that is probably a little bit higher than mine.
This is up to you, the viewer. Go back and rank up every single one except for the one I didn't rank. Just ignore that. Don't worry about it.
Or try to guess what he would have
Remove
said.
10 from the total score. Make it whatever out of 90.
And calculate it and send it to the movievaultpod@gmail.com.
Because we don't wanna
Comment it. Send personal messages to everyone involved.
Yeah, DM us over Instagram if you can find it.
Comment, like, subscribe. I don't know. Can you really? I'm sure you've got somewhere you can subscribe.
Yeah,
to,
we
right?
do have a YouTube channel.
Fantastic.
It's not
Subscribe.
It's not called the Movie Vault, though. It's called Last Resort Network, so you have to get that distinction.
Oh, subscribe to Last Resort Network
Get that in your heads.
and listen to Ingo Plum.
That's true, too. If we didn't mention before, aside from going to Skyline, Jacob is also a musician.
How do you learn my name?
Oh, well, I mean...
No, I'm just
Skyline
kidding. I introduced
Directory.
myself
Wait,
earlier.
the Skyline, the
yes.
Skyline guest list that you have to sign
See,
up to.
I wasn't told I'm allowed to do this, but I'm going to.
Oh, yeah, you're definitely allowed to do this.
Listen to Ingo Plum on most streaming platforms. Either of the two albums, honestly. I don't really care. See if you enjoy it. If you don't, tell me. If you enjoy it, tell me. I just want attention.
Wait, how do you spell Ingo Plum?
INGO
All right.
PLUM.
With a
as in the
space in
fruit.
between.
Yes, with a space in between.
Although you probably would get
it. It is. Weird folk is the best way I can describe it.
I describe it as all of the music that Jacob has ever recommended to me combined into one thing.
Fantastic. I will take it.
Yes, and
Very original, as you can tell.
I've actually listened to all your stuff. I followed you a couple days ago because Ben was telling me about you. So
Really?
Yep.
What do you think?
I like it a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Shocking.
All right, now we're gonna get into Britta moments with Britta.
Perry.
Yeah, so this is our plot hole segment because Britta is from Community.
Yeah.
and we think she's a terrible character. And
You
so
don't like Britta?
No,
Oh, we
she's
hate
pointless.
Britta.
Why?
Because she's just the only reason she's in the show is to like talk about why she's so useless. You know, the entire.
She's
show.
the worst, just as they all say in the show.
Yeah. No, I enjoy Britta in the early seasons.
We got a Britta apologist here
Wow.
in the house.
See, I think that they each bring their own thing to the table.
Well, I agree, except for Britta. but we do
Jacob
want to.
stares menacingly into Ben's eyes.
And Ben takes it like a man and then looks away in fear.
He is uncomfortable, but I am unwavering. I've not blinked yet. And I think Ben's constipated. I'm really not sure. You'd really have to have a visual. Whoa, he just left. Oh, he's throwing a chair. Oh, no, he threw a chair at me.
And that pretty much sums up all of the plot holes in this movie because there aren't really any. It's like so well written that it would be hard to poke holes in this at all. Like
that, and it's like it's really smaller scale, as you said.
And it's
like
not supposed to be
well-focused.
realistic, so you can't be like, oh, this wasn't realistic, because that's kind of the point.
Like, oh, they'd never let a Russian spy in there, but like, isn't it happened before? You know, like
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah. So
Anyway,
that was
Got me in a headlock.
That was a great segment where we actually got to talk about Britta more than we talked about.
Ben, let him
everything
go.
else.
Ben, please let me. Oh no. Ow.
I just want him to buy me free Skyline, you know, and admit that Britta is a terrible character.
You know
Anyway,
what?
stock market, where we invest in people like they are Bitcoin. and
I am
commodities.
investing in my boy Pete.
Yeah, my boy Peter Sellers. Hopefully, does he go on to do anything better than this? Is the question.
What? He was in a lot. He was a big famous comedian at the time. He was in a lot of
He wasn't
stuff.
in a lot of movies. Wait, Pink Panther was after this though.
Yeah.
He wasn't actually the Pink Panther. No, yeah.
No, he was Detective
Pink Panther
Clouseau.
came out, and then this movie came out, and then he was in 2 more Pink Panthers, and then a couple other movies. But I think he is a really big comedian, so like, yeah, he would have been.
He was doing all right for himself.
Yes.
Is
and
he
then-
alive right now?
I doubt it.
Yeah, I can look it up. I mean,
I don't believe he is. I can say with enough confidence that you do not have to look it
yeah,
up.
he died in 1980, so geez, he was. That would explain why his last movie credit is in 1979.
Wow, he was really going at it till he died.
Well, good for him.
Good for him.
Good
Poor
career.
man never got to experience retirement.
Yeah, that is probably disappointing, but at least he got to die doing what he loved. Hopefully,
Maybe.
I mean, I
We
don't
can't
exactly know the situations behind. But let's see, George. I don't know that I would have invested in anyone else particularly, other than hopefully I would have invested in Stanley Kubrick because he would go on to do arguably his biggest films after this, unless you count like Spartacus or Paths of Glory. Well, no, 2001: The Space Odyssey. Space Odyssey is probably his biggest movie, and that came out 4 years after this one.
Or one of the lieutenants on the B-52, James Earl Jones.
Who would go on to do a little movie called Star Wars?
I don't know if you guys have heard of that before.
And he would play a small character known as Darth Vader.
Which
Yeah.
the original actor got cheated out of the voice of. He thought that he was going to be the voice.
Oh, but he was just the physical
and then
body.
he was just the physical body. He got told he'd be the voice until James Earl Jones just like got hired for it instead. Not James Earl Jones' fault. He has no fault in my eyes, unless he's done something horrible.
Which we don't know about.
So let's
we
ignore
don't
that.
take any responsibility for. I mean, I'm sure Stanley Kubrick did lots of horrible things over his career, but I don't take any responsibility for them. I'm just reviewing his movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, transition.
So that's pretty much it. Final conclusions on the movie. A biting political satire that, if you chew on it for enough, will hopefully leave you feeling more alive than dead.
But it'll get you stuck in your teeth, unfortunately.
Lots of different questions can be raised. Like, did this help forward the Cold War? Did like, because this came out in 1960 what?
1964. So in
Yeah.
the thick of things, like the Cold War didn't really end until the USSR ended, basically.
Yeah, so it was interesting, and then also it does raise questions like, did they bomb all of the world or just Russia? Was there actually a like a big detonator bomb that would destroy the world? Doomsday device. Was that real, or was the Russian guy just lying to get him to escalate things? You know, there's a lot of questions that are raised, but of course Ben's favorite ambiguity
Yes.
took over.
Yes, and that's what ultimately makes this movie better than other movies. The fact that it did not try to like wrap it up in a neat bow. It just instead left you thinking at the end. As all movies, well, maybe not all movies, as most movies should.
Yeah. Sorry, it is far past when I normally go to sleep. I am beat. But it'll wake me up to talk about Skyline.
Ben, put him in another headlock.
Oh no. Oh.
Let me go! You weren't supposed to say that. No negative commentary about us on our podcast. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. We're open to
And
criticism.
he cheats to poker. He cheats to poker. Yeah, oh, jeez.
I'd cheat at poker. Okay, well, you know where to find us on social media, and if you don't, at the Movie Vault Pod on Instagram, at Movie Vault Pod on Twitter, and email us at themovievaultpod@gmail.com. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So it's time to close the vault as we do every week. So
we can let you do it if you would like to do it.
'Cause
So all
Jacob's-
you have to do is make a sound
First,
effect.
would you like to check and see if this spider would like to be interviewed? The spider on the floor right here.
sure, why not?
Hey, spider. Hello. Oh, I can't do a voice for that long. All right, what noises am I making? It's just
any noise you want to.